Hey everyone, it's your girl Maddie here, aka Beavermosh, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by Phil of Mastiff, whose latest record, Deprecipice, is coming out on March 22nd on MNRK Heavy. Phil, how are we doing today? Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, it's all good. It's about 8 p.m. UK time, and I've just been and had a couple of pints in the pub, so I'm feeling pretty good. Just had a week off work as well, so yeah, feeling good.
Oh, time off is always good. It's about 2 o'clock here, so we're just kind of in the middle of the afternoon, so bit of a difference there, but hey.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, with your new record, with really the music you make, I want to talk about your approach because you seem to pull from both sludge metal and doom, and you definitely also have a hardcore influence. And so I want to ask you somewhat of a what came first, the chicken or the egg kind of question. Did y'all guys start as like hardcore fans who brought in metal, or was it the other way around, or was it kind of like both at the same time funneled into this project?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I think there's a little bit of history behind it. When we started this band a long time ago, I'd kind of like taken the reins on guitar with a really limited amount of ability, and
Yeah,
so the the really slow kind of doomy sludgy riffs were kind of easier to write, if
sure.
we're being honest. So the kind of the older records do sound slower, dirgier, sludgier, but I think as we've progressed and I've got a little bit better and we've kind of like we recruited another guitar player, it's all got a bit more metal, a little bit more precise, a bit more sort of accomplished. Well, we're still not hugely accomplished, but I think our ability has allowed us to venture into metal and hardcore and kind of like speed things up a little bit
Yeah.
and just be a bit more varied. So I think it was born out of necessity to start that we were kind of sludgy and doomy. But I think as we've developed, we've become a little bit more metallic and harder edged and a little bit more angular.
So you kind of you're saying that like as you've evolved, as you've gotten better at your craft, your music has become slightly more technical.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we're still definitely not a tech band, but it's more
No, yeah.
technical than the releases that we've put out there before. So definitely, it's just the ability and our influences have all kind of mixed together. I certainly really enjoy hardcore. I enjoy fast, D beats and things like that, and
Yeah.
I think that's certainly filtering into the new record a little bit more
Yeah.
than certainly the things from sort of 2017, 2018. I think as we've moved forwards, we've definitely got quicker and a little bit more precise.
So maybe some like discharge influence kind of creeping in.
Yeah, interestingly, I was just talking to a guy. I've never really chatted to him in the pub, and he was talking. He loves punk, and
Yeah.
what did he say? GBH played his friend's 50th birthday party,
Wow.
which is it's pretty cool in the UK. Um, yeah, all that kind of D beat stuff. I kind of like all that. I mean, Black Flag was a huge influence on me. I love
Of course.
Damaged. I thought it was a superb album. Um, and quite a tricky album to play a lot of, I think, as well.
Yeah, so I won't pretend to be a hardcore aficionado or an expert. I am a metal channel, but yeah, I definitely for my taste, my favorite of the hardcore punk is I've always loved those early Minor Threat records. Just so much ferocity and anger and just pure youthful energy. It's good shit.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
undeniable. It's so simple but so good.
Yeah. Well, I was reading through kind of some of the upcoming kind of press leading up to this record, and the band Mastiff has gone on and saying that this new record that you're putting out is more on the hardcore side, where the last one may have leaned more into death metal or metal. And I'm wondering, is there any particular reason why your band is kind of taking that route? Was it a conscious decision?
It isn't ever a conscious decision with Mastiff. It's um, one of the two guitar players, me or Jam, who's the other guitar player. We might like come up with a riff at home and then bring it into the practice space and
Sure.
kick it around a little bit and see what happens. I'm hoping people kind of don't get the idea we're trying to do things that are kind of like paint by the numbers. It's
Absolutely.
pretty organic in the way we write, to be honest. We bring a riff, kick it around, maybe it goes in a different direction than we first anticipated, but that's really the philosophy that this band sort of uses. It's see what happens in the room. You sometimes get a little bit of magic. Sometimes you go away feeling frustrated. Other times things just click and you think, oh, that's good. Can't wait to record it.
Is there ever times where you're going through this process and someone will come up with a riff or a drum pattern and it's like, wow, that would have never worked in a previous Mastiff record, but let's maybe try it or try to like push a track to kind of fit this idea that's like completely new to us?
Yeah, I don't think we ever tried to fit to a certain idea, but there's sort of a on the opening track of the new record. Actually, there's a really like clean break. There's some
Hmm.
distinguishable lead guitar a little bit, and we've also got a couple of tracks with guitar solos in them on this new one, which we they were done by other people. They were
Hmm.
guests on the album. So yeah, I think we're always really open and just sort of we put together a in the track Worship. There's a little chord progression that sounds really tough, but I was kind of like, oh, that'd sound ace with a dive bomb solo on it, and neither of me or Jam, the other guitarist, are really um, that good at that kind of aspect. So we asked the lad from the band Yersin to come down to the studio and record
Okay.
a solo on it, and he's just shredded like a proper Kerry King dive bomb fest. It does sound so good. So it went from sounding like a marauder, tough New York hardcore section to a Slayer section, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and both of those approaches you could definitely hear, and yeah, because I have listened to the record, and yeah, you can definitely hear that on the first opening track, kind of the fusion of those two musical paths. I want to talk about some of the guest spots you have on this record.
Yeah,
On
yeah,
one, you have Harry from Burner, who has been a supporter of this show. So Harry, if you're watching, I appreciate the support, and Ethan from Primitive Man, and lending some of their talents on his records. How and why did those collaborations specifically take place?
Um, just something we hadn't ever done before. We hadn't ever had any guest spots on any other records, and we're kind of building a network of cool people that
Yeah,
we're in contact with. So we just thought we would, try and get people involved to bring different dynamics and different elements than we've had before.
absolutely.
Harry absolutely nailed it with his vocal take. It's pretty insane. It's sort of he in the studio. He was just like he was doing I actually wasn't there, but I was told he was kind of doing the high stuff and the low stuff all in one take. And the guy recording said, "No, no, we'll just do the highs in one take, we'll do the lows on the other." But he just turned up and he was just going to rock it straight out, which was awesome. And then Ethan's stuff was all done through our bass player's connection with him. He didn't come to the studio, of course, because he's based in the States, but
Hmm.
he just sort of did it and then sent it over, and it just kind of worked that way. So it worked out really well. And then the other two guest spots are kind of more local bands, really. So like Friends, and they were kind of like guitar solo sections that we haven't ever really done before either. So it all brought a different sort of dynamic and a different feel to the album, which is pretty cool, and a few different talking points on it.
Cool. Yeah. Do you want to maybe give credit to those guest spots that I missed because I only saw the two that I mentioned in kind of the materials that I was given. So who else is on this record?
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lad called Rob. He's even more northern than me. He comes from a town called Sunderland,
Okay.
and he plays in a band called Yersin, and we're doing our tour with them in March.
Okay.
And they are an awesome band, so everyone should go and listen to Yersin. And he did the awesome like Kerry King shreddy. He's got a BC Rich Warlock and a Kerry King amp, and when
Sure.
he plays in big metal gauntlets with spikes on and stuff. So he's pure metal. And he shredded a really good solo. And then Dan, who plays in a band 13, but in Roman digits,
Okay.
and they are a local Hull band, but he's an incredibly accomplished guitarist. And he did a solo on the single "Serrated,"
Hmm.
and it's got a bit of a rock flavour to it. There's a sort of step up where he kind of goes to a higher register, and it's got a really distinctive, different feel to the kind of
Sure.
the guitar work that generally we've used before. He actually he stood in for me when the band toured with Avatar, who were quite a big Scandinavian sort of theatrical metal band.
Okay.
We did a tour. I wasn't on it. I was at work, unfortunately. But Dan, who had done the solo, he actually stood in for me and did a really good job of it as well. So that was the connection there as well.
I hear that exact story so much. How with us people in underground metal, those we can't always just like forget a day job. So sometimes those day jobs get in the way of doing metal stuff, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm like I guess you guys would call it a high school teacher, but I'm a sort of English literature teacher. So
Sure.
I get holiday time, but
Yeah.
it's pretty set in stone, and I can't just sort of break out of work for a week or two, and it
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
doesn't work. I've got quite a lot of commitment through my work, so it's I do what I can. I do what I can.
Do your students know that you tour in a metal band?
I keep it as quiet as possible. Sometimes we actually took a group of kids. We took 150 sort of 16-year-olds to watch a performance of Macbeth, and one of the kids had a Mastiff shirt on. So I
Oh.
guess I guess maybe the game is kind of up. Maybe some of them know about it.
When I don't get too off topic, but I remember when I was in school, um the the just kind of like general like music teacher, the person who like kind of like taught the choir and like like the jazz band in school, um dressed very shirt and tie to school, but everyone knew that like he played in a metal band outside and was very into
Oh,
that stuff.
really?
So I remember one day there was like the kids who wore the metal shirt, and it was a day that the new Behemoth album came out, and the teacher didn't want to do anything but listen to the new Behemoth album. So shit you not, he just gave out these bullshit worksheets, just kind of babysit the kids, and then asked the two kids in metal shirts, which at the time I was not into it. I was too raised in a Christian house. But he like, hey, have y'all heard the new Behemoth record? Come to my office and just like listen to Behemoth with these kids. Watch like what the other kids play with. It was I'll never forget like witnessing that. Like, oh, okay, so these teachers, could be into cool shit outside of work. So anyway, tangent, but I thought maybe that kind of relates to what you're talking about.
Oh, definitely. I think it is just professionally. I do try and keep it as quiet as possible because
Yeah,
it's pretty extreme music.
yeah. um, so kind of changing gears here. Your last record, "Leave Me the Ashes of Earth," was released kind of right in the depths of COVID, like literally a year after the global lockdown. And this new one of yours has a little bit more space to breathe from that. And I'm wondering, did that change how you went about writing and your approach to this, or how you release it, or did it impact the overall product at all?
Oh, the impact of COVID. I think we what it did for me certainly was because I was working from home so much. It gave me the opportunity to play guitar a lot more and just
Sure.
and get. So I kind of like banked up quite a lot of riffs, and so some of the tracks on the new album were written during COVID, and even though it's going to be released 2024, some of those tracks were written in 2020, the summer of
Okay.
2020. Everything is ending. And I remember just sort of like playing in the front room of the house I used to live in and just like, oh, this sounds good. This sounds good. And it was just incredibly frustrated that I couldn't kind of share it and we couldn't all work on it together because obviously we just couldn't get together. So we went through the longest spell of not getting in a room and being able to actually play together. But I've still got some riffs I think that could come on the next album because I just seem to bank up tons and tons of stuff because I had
Yeah.
the time to play, and that's quite a luxury that I don't always get with the day to day life and the busyness of just day to day living. So
Sure.
I think the big thing with COVID, it just gave people time to take stock and me focus on guitar a little bit, learn a few things, just kind of write, be creative, but individually. And I think that was it's a, in some ways quite valuable because if we'd have just carried on gigging, I probably wouldn't. If there wasn't ever a lockdown, I probably wouldn't have had the time just to sit on a guitar and kind of bank up tons of stuff, tons of ideas. So I guess it was in a sense, it gave me some more creative scope, creative time to think about playing the guitar. So it wasn't it wasn't all bad.
Yeah, it's very interesting kind of looking back at what COVID did for and against underground metal. In one sense, like it was very bad because you couldn't go to shows, like, there was like that source of income for records and bands was gone, which is like for a lot of bands that they depend on that. They depend on merch
Yeah, yeah,
sales. But on the other hand, I mean, it allowed, especially now that we have the internet and file sharing, you don't have to be in the same room to record or write. Um, it'll People had so much more time to really work on, record, write music because people didn't really have to have the same work, tie downs, and
yeah,
also it
exactly.
gave people more time to listen to music, discover music. Be on the internet and find band because they had nothing better to do. So there was kind of very obvious pros and cons to the lockdown in terms of underground metal and underground music in general.
Yeah, I hugely. Spotify came into its own. I was doing tons of running, just to try and kill time and exercise
Yeah.
and stay healthy. So Spotify headphones, go for a run, listen to albums, and I found some really sort of again more hardcore than metal, but bands like Inclination, Sanction,
Sure.
Boundaries, all the new sort of wave of metallic hardcore. I kind of that would have passed me by if I hadn't the time to sort of listen to it. And there's some fantastic bands around at the moment, and certainly COVID gave me the time to refocus a little bit because generally I just stick to the things that I know I like, whereas having all that time just made me sort of diversify a little bit and delve into some of the new stuff that was coming out, which normally again I struggle to have the time to really
Yeah.
focus on and to do.
Yeah, and I'm curious. And I'm sure this data's out there, but I'm like, I wonder, like, what were like Bandcamp sales numbers in 2020 versus now? And I'm thinking, like, first of all, people had more time to listen to music, and what people were getting stimulus checks. So was that go into to bands, in on that? I don't know, but that's something that anyone watching, if there is information on that, do leave in the comments because I'm almost positive there has to be. So anyway, um, I. I saw your music video that you put out for kind of the first single, Serrated, and I thought it was hilarious. Really captures in kind of this joking way the DIY bar kind of gig. Where did it even has kind of like this like grainy retro VHS quality? Like where did you get the idea for this video? How did it come about?
This is going to sound incredibly egotistical, but I had the idea of kind of like Mastiff turning up to a venue that they obviously weren't meant to turn up to. It was
Yeah.
a sort of a mistake. Um, it was kind of inspired. This may be a reference you wouldn't get in the US, but there was a series called Phoenix Nights, and it was set in the north of England, and it was about working men's clubs, which are kind of like
Okay.
they're a they're a very sort of UK concept. They're not quite a pub, but they're a members based club where working class people would go and get cheap drinks, and there would be raffles, and they would play bingo, and a bit of a community hub. So not it's slightly different to a pub. And I just thought had this idea that it'd be really funny to um, have Mastiff play to a room of people that are bemused by what's kind of taking place in front of them. And for a band who do pride ourselves on being sort of miserable and making pretty extreme um, music, having a video that is quite fun. I always like that juxtaposition as well. I think the shift between humor and the pretty savage metals, I think it's
Yeah.
good. It works. Um, Not to decry any bands that film videos in forests, but it's kind of like quite a done concept to do a metal video in a forest or something like that. Whereas go to a working man's club where there's bingo going on and things like that, and the janitor suddenly busts out and plays a guitar solo. It's funny. It's a little bit of a talking point, and yeah, we had a really good time filming it.
It's funny, but it's not that far from the truth. At least where I am, like there's a VFW, which is in America, it's like a veterans hall. In in my city, just a couple blocks away, and like in the main room, yeah, there's like people singing karaoke. There's bingo. There's pool tabs. There's people drinking cheap beer. But there's like this room to the side, and yeah, local metal bands and hardcore bands will play in there, and people are and like the normal everyday people in their sports jerseys have no idea what's going on. But there's like two worlds having to coexist in the same building, and I think it's really funny.
Yeah, I think we really tried to capture that dynamic and play up
Yeah,
to it a little bit. And yeah, if nothing else, we had a really good time filming it. A
yeah.
lot of the beer that you see being poured in the video was, we drank that. It was a kind of free bar for the day, so it was a good thing. It
Yeah.
was good fun. It's a really good day.
Well, I'm curious. What is the underground music scene like in Kingston, where you're from?
Oh, Kingston upon Hull. A lot of people refer to it in its abbreviated version of Hull.
Yeah.
Um, it's not amazing, but to be fair and to be sort of objective, the past two gigs we've done in the home city have been really, really good.
Okay.
They've been incredibly full. The audience have participated, been active, sold lots of tickets, sold lots of t-shirts. It's been really, really good. The problem we have is just having that venue that people know always to go to. I don't think there's one that has a strong enough sort of identity for particularly heavy music.
Sure.
There's a really there's a really famous venue called the Adelphi, and bands like Oasis played there, on their rise to megastardom, and some pretty big kind of like indie bands, but it's never really been geared up to heavy. So you go to some cities. I was in Manchester on Wednesday. We saw the Frozen Soul tour, which
Yeah,
was pretty
absolutely.
awesome. That was amazing. But that venue, Rebellion, it really is geared up just for the heavy stuff, and generally if there are gigs on there. And I don't think this city really shares that. I think it's not bad. There are some bands, but it's okay. It's okay. So so.
Hmm.
But the
Yeah.
past two have been good, so I've got to be fair there.
Yeah, I feel that in my city, Minneapolis, it's definitely an indie rock city. We are where Prince lives, so like a lot of music like that is popular here. And we did have like a very metal venue that closed down, so metal shows don't always happen here. I mean, we do get them, but like there isn't like an established place for them. So I understand that reality pretty intimately. So it's unfortunate. Um, Kind of my last question I wanted to ask you though is like how your label MNRK Heavy, what has been the experience working with them like?
Really free, really liberating. It's
Yeah,
not that our previous label, the guy that ran the previous label was a great guy called Andrew Field. I'll give him a little shout out. It's APF Records,
yeah,
and he again, there were never any directives of it's got to be like this or it's got to be that, or you've got to sound like that. It's not none of that. It's just as with MNRK, we just kind of write stuff, record it, send it, and they've been very obliging in printing things up, paying for the studio time, paying for our accommodation when we recorded. Um, Dan, who's the kind of our contact, he's a good fun guy. We've got a WhatsApp group chat with him, and it's just really friendly, really good.
yeah.
He's always trying to get us on really good tours, and inevitably we can never do them because we're all at work or we've got different responsibilities and things like that. I mentioned about the Frozen Soul gig that I went to on Wednesday. We actually got offered a support slot for that whole tour right the way through Europe,
Yeah.
but we couldn't do it because we all had work and stuff like that. And
Damn,
it's,
damn.
it's quite gutting, really. But we are, for a metal band, we are quite advanced in years. When you put us next to our counterparts, we're a little bit older, so we're not quite as free as a lot of the other bands that maybe could jump at things.
I looking at just kind of looking for this interview and kind of looking at the label roster, kind of a somewhat off-topic piece of trivia, but kind of interesting. You are label mates with Under Oath, which was like a huge like
Yeah, yeah,
post-hardcore band from like 10 years ago. I mean, I know they're still active, but like I just did not expect that. So I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, what was that really good? There was the first track on one of the Under Oath albums. It was a brilliant track. I can't remember, really, really catchy one.
I know they are like a very
Um,
different band than they were like back in the day.
yeah, yeah. I
Uh,
was talking quite a while ago, but I remember having one of their albums.
okay.
Darkest Hour. I think they're quite an influence on Jam, our other guitarists, and I think they're on the same label as well. So
Okay.
it's kind
Yeah.
of mind blowing, but at the
Yeah.
same time, you don't ever really interact with those bands, or it's kind of a cool thing to say, but it
Yeah.
doesn't really sort of materialize into too much that's
Yeah.
too much that you can grasp in your hand, if you like.
Well, anyway, Phil, thank you so much for joining me. We're running out of time, but before I let you go, I was wondering if there's any last words you had, or if there's any plugs or anything you want to share with my viewers at home.
Yeah, depending on when people are able to see this, we have another single being released on the 21st of February. So that's
Okay.
next Wednesday. That track is called Void. And then the album itself is coming out on the 22nd of March. And we'll be touring through the UK and Scotland for about a week from the 22nd of March. Going to do a Hull gig to start, and then we're going up to Scotland to do Glasgow and Edinburgh, and then we're
Nice.
going down to London. We're playing Brighton, and we're doing Bristol, then Birmingham, and then Nottingham. So we're all looking forward to that. That should be fun. And yeah, check it out. MNRK Deprecipice, 22nd of March. The first single's already out, so rated. If you've not seen it yet, head over to YouTube and watch that video. Yeah, hopefully you'll get a laugh out of it. And the next track will be released 21st of Feb, and that one's called Void, which does have a pretty convergy feel to it, especially how
Awesome.
it starts.
Cool. Well, you heard it here, everyone watching at home. Check out the new record coming out March 22nd. Uh, Thank you, Phil, again for joining me. And for those watching at home, my name is Maddie, aka Beaver Mosh, and I am signing off.